The cursor hovered over my personal server directory for exactly 3 seconds before he clicked delete. Jason Brooks did not even look at me when he did it. He just kept that smug grin plastered across his face while the confirmation dialog flashed on his screen. "You do not own this code," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. The directory icon blinked 1 time, 2 times, then vanished. That was when everything went dark. Every monitor in the building flickered to black. The hum of servers in the next room stuttered, then died. Someone down the hall screamed. Jason's face went from smug to ghost white in under 2 seconds. And me? I closed my laptop, slid it into my bag, and smiled. The whole corporate database had just shut itself down. Before one could process what was happening, I was already standing, my messenger bag over my shoulder, walking toward the exit like I had just finished a regular Tuesday. Behind me, chaos erupted. Voices were overlapping, phones were ringing, and someone was yelling about emergency backup protocols. Jason sat frozen at his desk, his mouse clicking frantically at a screen that showed nothing but an error message in brutal red text. I did not look back. My name is Edward Miller. I am 58 years old, and until that very moment, I was the senior systems architect at Apex Solutions, a mid-sized healthcare technology firm in Portland, Oregon. 15 years I had given them, 15 years of late nights, weekend calls, and building a database management system from the ground up that actually worked. My roots were not in Silicon Valley mansions or legacy tech money. I grew up in a split-level ranch in Beaverton, where my dad fixed cars in the driveway and my mom managed the books for 3 local businesses on a kitchen table covered in receipts and coffee rings. They taught me 2 things. They taught me how to solve problems nobody else wanted to touch, and how to remember what it felt like to need someone to give a damn. That second lesson mattered more than people think. Empathy is not a weakness in tech. It is architecture. It is understanding that the database code you write at 2 a.m. affects the nurse pulling a patient record at 2 p.m. It is remembering that servers are not just metal boxes. They are infrastructure for human beings trying to do their jobs. Jason Brooks never learned that lesson. He arrived on a Monday in October, carrying a titanium briefcase and wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. The executive team introduced him as our new Director of Technology Operations, a title that apparently meant he supervised everything I had built without understanding any of it. His resume sparkled. He was a 38-year-old MIT graduate who had spent 3 years at a Bay Area startup that got acquired, followed by 2 years consulting for firms that paid obscene rates for mediocre advice. He had the confidence of someone who had never actually broken anything important enough to learn from. I knew we were in trouble during his first team meeting. "I have reviewed the current infrastructure," Jason announced, not bothering with pleasantries or introductions. He pulled up a slide deck full of buzzwords and consulting frameworks that had nothing to do with our actual systems. "Frankly, what I am seeing is inefficiency, redundancy, and a complete lack of modern DevOps principles." He said DevOps principles like it was a magic spell. Keith Peterson, one of our senior developers who was 42 years old, raised his hand. "The current database architecture has 99.97% uptime over 5 years. The redundancy is intentional. Healthcare data cannot go down without violating federal laws and endangering patients." Jason's smile did not reach his eyes. "Uptime is fine, but efficiency matters more. We need to streamline, cut costs, and modernize the stack." I should have said something then. I should have pushed back, but 15 years in tech had taught me to pick my battles, and I figured Jason would crash into reality soon enough on his own. I was right about the crash, but I was wrong about the timeline. The first week, Jason started scheduling optimization meetings, hour-long sessions where he would talk about cloud migrations and containerization, while the rest of us tried not to check our phones. He loved the sound of his own voice, loved throwing around terms like paradigm shift and synergistic integration. The second week, he started making changes. They were small things at first, like adjusting monitoring thresholds without consulting anyone, reassigning tickets based on what he thought was important rather than actual priority, and sending emails at 11 p.m., demanding status updates on projects that were already completed. By week 3, he had started targeting me specifically. It began with a meeting request. The invite was sent for 4 p.m. on a Friday. the universal time slot for conversations that were not going to be pleasant. I showed up prepared. I brought documentation, performance metrics, and incident reports showing our stability. Jason sat behind his new desk. He had already redecorated the office with minimalist furniture and a standing desk he never actually used, with his laptop angled so I could not see the screen. "Edward," he started, not bothering with small talk. "I have been digging into the server architecture, and I am concerned about what I am finding." "Concerned how?" I asked. He spun his laptop around. On the screen was a directory tree of our server infrastructure, with one folder highlighted in yellow. It was Raw Personal, my personal workspace. Every developer has one, a place for scripts, tools, and automation that makes the job easier, but is not officially part of the production environment. Mine was more extensive than most because, well, I had been there longer and built more tools. But it was all documented, all backed up, and all approved by the previous director. "This," Jason said, tapping the screen, "is a security risk. Personal directories on company servers are unaudited code. For all I know, you could be running anything in here." The implication was clear. He thought I was doing something shady. I kept my voice level. "That folder contains automation scripts, monitoring tools, and utility programs I have developed over the years. Everything is documented in the corporate wiki. Previous management approved it. Most of those tools are integrated into our daily operations." "Integrated how?" Jason asked, crossing his arms. "Database maintenance scripts, automated backup verification, and system health monitoring," I replied. Jason held up a hand. "I will need a 100% complete audit, documentation of everything in that directory, justification for why it needs to exist, and a migration plan for anything production critical." The translation was simple. He wanted me to spend weeks documenting things that already worked so he could justify deleting them anyway. I spent the next 2 weeks compiling documentation that Jason never read. Every email I sent him bounced back with one-line responses. "Received under review, we will discuss later." Meanwhile, he was making bigger changes. He fired Clara Jenkins from infrastructure support, a 55-year-old worker who had spent 22 years with the company, and replaced her with a cheap contractor who had never worked in healthcare database administrations. He canceled our external database monitoring service subscription to cut monthly costs by $1,200. Then he acted surprised when we missed a minor outage because nobody saw the alerts. He pushed a streamlining initiative that mostly involved deleting comments from code because he claimed they cluttered the files. The team started hemorrhaging people. Keith Peterson put in his notice, then Sarah Davis, then both of the junior developers who had just finished onboarding. I should have left too. My resume could land interviews anywhere, but there was something about abandoning the systems I had built. Systems that real healthcare providers and patients depended on, that felt like leaving a kid in a burning building. So I stayed, and I documented, and I watched Jason dismantle 15 years of careful work with the confidence of someone who had never actually had to fix anything. The breaking point came on a Thursday in November. I was in the server room running a routine hardware check on our database servers. The door opened behind me. Jason walked in, followed by 2 people I did not recognize. They were wearing dark business suits and carrying leather portfolios. "Edward," Jason said, not bothering with introductions. "These are compliance auditors from corporate. They are here to review our security standards." This was news to me. Nobody had mentioned an audit. "I scheduled it last week, sent an email," Jason claimed. I checked my phone right there. There was nothing. One of the auditors, a thin man with wireframe glasses, stepped forward. "We need access to all server directories, including personal workspaces, to verify compliance with corporate data policies and HIPAA security standards." Jason was watching me, waiting for a reaction. I unlocked my workstation and stepped aside. "Everything is documented. Access logs are clean. You will not find any issues." The audit took 3 hours. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. Every script was documented, every tool was logged, and every line of code had a clear purpose. When they finished, the auditor nodded at Jason. "All clear, no violations." Jason's jaw tightened. He had been hoping for ammunition. After the auditors left, he cornered me in the hallway. "Just because you passed the audit does not mean that personal directory stays." It is non-standard, it is a security risk, and I want it gone. Those tools are integrated into production, I warned him. Deleting them will break automated processes. Then document the processes and rebuild them properly in the official repositories, under proper version control, Jason snapped. They already are under version control, and they already are in the documentation. You would know that if you had read any of the materials I sent. His face flushed red. I do not appreciate the attitude, Edward. I am trying to run a professional operation here. So am I replied. I have been doing it here for 15 years. Yeah, well, things change. New management means new standards. Either adapt or find somewhere else to work. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing in the hallway with my pulse hammering in my ears. That night I went home and updated my resume, but before I could start sending applications, Jason made his move. The email came at 6:47 a.m. on a Friday, sent to the entire technology department with executive leadership carbon copied. The subject read, Infrastructure Modernization Initiative, team effective immediately. It stated that we were implementing new standards for server management and code repositories. All personal directories on company servers would be decommissioned by the end of business today. Any tools or scripts currently housed in personal workspaces must be migrated to official repositories or would be permanently deleted. This is non-negotiable. We cannot maintain professional standards while allowing unaudited personal directories to exist on production infrastructure. Compliance is mandatory, no exceptions. Signed, Jason Brooks, Director of Technology Operations. I read it twice, then checked the timestamp again. 6:47 a.m. He had sent this before most people were even awake, giving approximately 10 hours to migrate or lose potentially years of work. My phone started buzzing before I finished my coffee. Text messages from the remaining team members were all variations of the same panic. I called Keith Peterson, who had already given notice but was working his final 2 weeks. He is trying to force you out, Keith said flatly. This whole thing is targeted at you. Everyone else barely uses their personal directories. I know, I said. So what are you going to do? That was the question. I could comply, spend the day frantically migrating tools and scripts, probably missing things and definitely breaking automated processes. Or I could refuse, let him delete everything and watch the infrastructure crumble. Neither option was great. Then Keith said something that changed the equation. You know what is actually in your personal directory, right? Like everything that is integrated? Of course, I replied. Backup verification, health monitoring, automated maintenance. No, I mean everything, Keith said. The database reconciliation script. The one that runs every night. My stomach dropped. The reconciliation script. I had written it 8 years ago when we migrated from the old database system to the new database. It checked data integrity between the legacy backup system and the current production database. It had been running silently and perfectly every single night for 8 years. It was the one script that nobody remembered existed because it had never failed. Jason does not know about that script, I said slowly. Does anyone? I thought back. The original project documentation was archived. The previous director knew, but he had retired 4 years ago. The team members who had worked on the migration had all moved on. No, I said, I do not think anyone does. Keith was quiet for a moment. What happens if that script stops running? I pulled up the script on my laptop, reading through the code. Without it, the databases would drift. Production and backup would slowly desynchronize. Over time, the backup system would become unreliable, eventually useless. How long until someone noticed depended on whether we needed to do a restore. But more importantly, if someone deleted the Active Directory while the script was maintaining active connections, it would trigger a catastrophic database lock. I was not planning sabotage. I was not planning revenge. I was planning compliance. Exact, literal, complete compliance with Jason's directive. He wanted personal directories deleted. Fine, I would delete mine, but I would do it my way. I spent the morning creating documentation, not the documentation Jason wanted. He had already ignored all of that. This was documentation for myself, a complete map of every script, every tool, and every automated process that lived in my personal directory and touched production systems. The list was longer than I had remembered. The database reconciliation script was critical and ran nightly. The backup verification tool ran weekly. The system health monitoring dashboard ran constantly. Automated log rotation prevented disk space issues. Performance optimization scripts maintained query efficiency. The user access audit tool was a compliance requirement. There were 12 other utilities of varying importance, all of it documented, all of it logged, and all of it quietly keeping Apex Solutions running smoothly while Jason took credit for the uptime. At 2 p.m., Jason sent another email. Reminder, personal directory decommission deadline is 5 p.m. today. I will be personally verifying compliance. Failure to comply will result in administrative deletion of non-compliant directories. Administrative deletion. He was going to do it himself. I replied to the email, carbon copying the same executive distribution list he had used. Jason, I wrote, I will be removing all contents from my personal directory before the deadline. Please note that several automated database processes will need to be manually restarted after migration. I have attached documentation. Edward. The attached documentation was comprehensive, highly technical, and 47 pages long. Jason would never read it. I knew he would not, but it would be there, time-stamped and official, showing I had provided fair warning. At 4:30 p.m. I started migrating files. Most of it was straightforward. I copied scripts to the official repository, updated paths, and tested functionality. The non-critical stuff I migrated cleanly. System health dashboard migrated, log rotation migrated, performance optimization migrated. But the database reconciliation script was trickier. See, that script was not just a file I could copy and paste. It had dependencies, specific permissions, specific server access, and specific scheduling that was tied directly to my personal directory structure. Migrating it properly would take hours of reconfiguration testing and coordination. I had 30 minutes. At 4:55 p.m., I sent Jason one final email. Jason, personal directory has been cleared. Most critical functions migrated successfully. Database reconciliation script requires additional configuration time to migrate properly. I recommend scheduling a maintenance window next week to complete the transfer, Edward. At 4:59 p.m., Jason replied with 5 words, no extensions, delete everything now. So I did. I selected my personal directory, raw personal, and hovered my cursor over the delete button. I took a breath, thought about 15 years of late nights and building something that actually mattered. Then I thought about Jason's smug face, his titanium briefcase, and his complete lack of understanding or respect for the work. I clicked delete, my directory vanished. A confirmation message popped up, directory permanently removed. The screen flickered just one time, barely noticeable, but I saw it. At 5:03 p.m., Jason appeared at my desk. He did not knock. He just walked up and stood there, arms crossed, radiating authority he had not earned. Personal directory cleared, he asked. Completely, I replied. Good, he said, pulling out his phone. I am running a verification scan now to make sure. If I find anything left behind, we are going to have a serious conversation about insubordination. I just nodded. My laptop was already packed, and my messenger bag was over my shoulder. Jason frowned. Going somewhere? It is 5 p.m. on a Friday, I said. I am going home. We have the infrastructure review meeting at 5:30, Jason said. I sent a calendar invite. 1 hour ago, I replied, for a meeting scheduled after business hours on a Friday with no agenda. I have plans. His jaw tightened. This is not optional, Edward. Neither is my time off, I said, standing up. Jason stepped slightly to the left, making it clear I would have to move around him. You know what I think? He said, his voice low. I think you have been coasting for years, built a little kingdom here, made yourself indispensable with your custom tools, and now you are upset that someone is finally holding you accountable. The anger that had been simmering for weeks crystallized into something cold and precise. You want to know what I think, Jason? I think you are so desperate to prove you are worth your salary that you cannot tell the difference between optimization and destruction. I think you have never actually built anything that mattered, so you do not understand what it takes to maintain it, and I think that was when the first monitor went dark. A workstation 3 desks down flickered, 1 time, 2 times, then displayed a database connection error. Then another monitor, then another. Jason's phone started ringing, then someone else's, then the desk phone near the conference room. The overhead lights flickered. Jason stared at his phone, color draining from his face. What the hell? My phone buzzed. It was a text from Timothy Davis, our 60-year-old senior database administrator. The database just went offline. All of it. What did you do? I had not done anything. Technically, I had just deleted my personal directory, exactly as instructed. The fact that my personal directory had contained the script that maintained active database connections, and that forcibly deleting those active connections during operation would cause the reconciliation process to fail catastrophically and trigger a safety protocol that shut down database access to prevent data corruption, was just unfortunate timing. Jason was already moving, half jogging toward the server room. I followed him, bag still over my shoulder, because this was about to get interesting. The server room was chaos. Monitors displayed error messages and cascading red text. Timothy Davis was typing frantically, sweat beading on his forehead. "What happened?" Jason demanded. Timothy did not look up. Database reconciliation process crashed hard. It triggered an emergency shutdown to prevent corruption. "I am trying to restart it, but something is wrong with the backup connections." "How long until it is fixed?" "I do not know. I have never seen this happen before. The reconciliation script has been running perfectly for years. I do not understand why it would suddenly stop." Timothy stopped typing, turned slowly to look at me. "The script," he said quietly. "It was in your personal directory." Jason's head snapped toward me. "What?" "The database reconciliation script," Timothy repeated. "The one that maintains integrity. Edward wrote it years ago. It runs from his personal directory." "Ran," I corrected. Past tense. "The directory was deleted at 5 p.m. as instructed." The silence that followed was the kind that precedes explosions. Jason's face went through several colors before settling on a shade that suggested his blood pressure was approaching dangerous levels. "You deleted a critical production script," he said, his voice shaking. "Without authorization, without migration, you just deleted it." I pulled out my phone, calmly opened my email, and showed him the screen. "I sent you 3 emails about the database reconciliation script and documented that it needed proper migration time. You replied, and I quote, 'No extensions. Delete everything now.'" "I did not know," he stammered, his hand trembling as he read the email chain. "I did not know it was critical infrastructure. It was in the documentation I sent," I replied. "Page 17, Section 4, Database Reconciliation and Integrity Maintenance." "I cannot read 47 pages of technical documentation in one afternoon," Jason yelled. "Then maybe you should not have given one afternoon to decommission 15 years of infrastructure." Timothy had stopped trying to fix the database and was now watching us with horrified fascination. Jason thrust my phone back at me. "Fix it right now. Restore the script and get the database back online." "I cannot," I said. "What do you mean you cannot?" "The directory was permanently deleted. The script is gone. Restoring it means rebuilding it from scratch, reconfiguring database permissions, re-establishing the connection protocols, and testing everything to make sure it will not cause further corruption. That is 1 week of work minimum." "We do not have 1 week," Jason screamed. "We have healthcare clients expecting 24/7 access to patient records. This is a direct violation of HIPAA security standards under 45 CFR, Section 164.308. If we cannot verify data integrity, we are facing federal fines of up to $50,000 per day." I adjusted my bag on my shoulder. "Then I suggest you contact the corporate backup recovery team and start working on a restoration plan." "You are not leaving," Jason said, blocking the door. "You caused this mess. You are going to fix it." "Actually," I said, keeping my voice perfectly level, "you caused this mess when you ordered me to delete critical infrastructure without proper planning. I followed your direct order, which you put in writing and sent to executive leadership." Jason looked like he wanted to strangle me. "This is sabotage. This is compliance," I replied. "I deleted my personal directory as mandated. The fact that you did not bother to understand what was in that directory before ordering its deletion is your failure, not mine. I warned you in writing with documentation, and you chose not to read it." Timothy cleared his throat. "The database is still down. We need to do something." "Edward fixes this," Jason snapped, "or he is fired." I smiled. "Fire me then. But you should know that rebuilding the reconciliation script from scratch requires intimate knowledge of both the current database architecture and the legacy system it replaced. I am the only person left who has that knowledge. Fire me, and you will be hiring outside consultants at 3 times my salary to spend 6 months figuring out what I can fix in 1 week. Jason's phone rang. He answered it without looking away from me. Yes, sir, Jason said, his voice tight. We are addressing the situation now. Technical malfunction. We will have it resolved shortly. He hung up and looked at me with pure hatred. How long to fix it? He asked through gritted teeth. If I start now, work through the weekend, and everything goes perfectly, I can have the database back online by Monday morning and full reconciliation functionality restored by Wednesday, I said. That is unacceptable, Jason muttered. That is reality. The alternative is hiring outside consultants. Your choice. Another phone rang, then another. The chaos was spreading as more people realized the system was down. Jason ran a hand through his hair. The smug confidence from this morning had completely evaporated. Fine, fix it. Whatever you need, just fix it. I will need a few things first, I said, in writing. Jason stared at my face. What terms? First, a formal written acknowledgement that this outage resulted from your directive to delete infrastructure without proper migration planning sent to executive leadership. Absolutely not, Jason hissed. Then good luck with the consultants, I said, turning toward the door. Wait, Jason's voice cracked. What else? Second, I want full restoration of my administrative access to all systems. No restrictions, no oversight. Third, a written agreement of no retaliation, no write-ups, and no disciplinary action. Put it in writing. You think you are in a position to negotiate? Jason sneered. His phone rang again. This time it was the senior vice president of operations. Yes, sir, Jason answered, his voice trembling. Yes, we are working on it. He hung up, his face pale. Fine, you will have everything in writing. Now fix the database. One more thing, I said. What? When this is resolved, I want a written recommendation from executive leadership, glowing for my next job, because after this weekend I am done. The moment the database is stable and reconciliation is restored, I am giving my 2 weeks' notice. I am not staying in an environment where management deletes critical infrastructure to win a power play. Jason wanted to argue, but 3 more phones were ringing, and the weight of consequences was finally settling on his shoulders. Fine, he said. Just fix it. I set my bag down and pulled out my laptop. Timothy, I said, I need full access to the production and backup database servers and the legacy system documentation if we still have it. Timothy was already typing. Sending you credentials now. I will pull the legacy files from the archive. Jason stood there, clearly unsure of what to do. You should probably go update executive leadership, I told him without looking up. Let them know the situation is under control, and we will have restoration timelines by tomorrow morning. He left, probably to figure out how to spin this disaster to save his own career. Timothy rolled his chair over to my workstation. That was the most beautiful professional execution I have ever witnessed. Not an execution, I said, an exit strategy. You really warned him in the documentation? Page 17, section 4. Highlighted and cross-referenced. He never read it. He never reads anything, Timothy said. That is why we are here. Can you actually fix this? I opened a terminal window and started typing commands. The damage was extensive, but not irreparable. The reconciliation script had crashed mid-process, leaving both databases in an inconsistent state. The safety protocols had kicked in correctly, shutting down access to prevent corruption. Yeah, I said, I can fix it. It will take time, but I can fix it. How did you know deleting the directory would cause this? Timothy asked. I knew the script maintained active database connections, and I knew forcibly terminating those connections during operation would probably trigger the safety shutdown. Timothy grinned. You took a calculated risk. I followed orders, I replied. The risk was Jason's, not mine. The rest of Friday night was a blur of terminal commands, database queries, and cold coffee. Timothy stayed to help, mostly because he wanted to see how the situation resolved. By midnight, I had stabilized the production database enough to bring it back online in read-only mode so critical systems could pull patient records. By 3 a.m. Saturday, I had rebuilt the basic framework of the reconciliation script. By 6 a.m., I had restored most functionality. Backup systems were syncing and data integrity checks were running. Jason showed up at 7 a.m. Saturday, looking like he had not slept at all. Status? He asked. Production database is live in read-only mode, I said. Full restoration by Monday morning. Reconciliation script is rebuilt and testing now. Executive leadership wants a full report, Jason said. They want it today. I looked up. Jason, I have been awake for 26 hours fixing a problem you created. They will get the report when the work is done. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. The fight had gone out of him somewhere around 2 a.m. when the board of directors got involved. There is going to be an investigation, he said quietly. I am sure there will be, I replied. The real question they will ask is why you ordered the deletion of critical infrastructure without understanding what you were deleting. Jason sat down, looking smaller. I screwed up, he muttered. Not an apology, just a statement of fact. I thought I was modernizing, doing what they hired me to do. You were trying to prove your value by finding problems that did not exist, I said. Instead, you created problems that did not need to exist. He laughed, hollow and exhausted. My career is over, isn't it? Probably, I said. But that is not my problem. By Monday morning, the database was fully operational, the reconciliation script was live, and all systems were back to normal. I submitted my formal report to executive leadership at 9 a.m. By 10 a.m., had emails from 3 different vice presidents thanking me for my quick response. By 11 a.m., I had the written recommendation I had asked for. By noon, I had submitted my resignation. My last 2 weeks at Apex Solutions were remarkably peaceful. Jason was placed on leave pending the investigation. An interim director was brought in, a woman in her late 50s named Evelyn Stone, who actually understood our work. The first thing she did was ask me to document everything I had built, not to criticize it, but to understand it. I spent those 2 weeks writing comprehensive documentation, training Timothy on the reconciliation script, and setting up monitoring systems so the next person would not have to rebuild from scratch. On my last day, the team threw a small party. Keith Peterson sent me a text. Heard you are leaving. Also heard Jason is too. Coincidence? I replied. Just following orders exactly as given. Keith texted back, you are terrifying, I love it. Evelyn Stone called me into her office on my way out. Edward, she said. I read the investigation report, including the emails. The documentation was clear. Your warnings were explicit. Jason ignored every red flag. I know, I said. You also knew exactly what would happen when that directory was deleted, she continued. I did not say anything. I am not criticizing, she smiled. Honestly, I am impressed. You followed orders, documented everything, and let incompetence expose itself. That is either brilliant strategy or perfect coincidence. It was compliance, I said, nothing more. Evelyn handed me an envelope, your final paycheck, plus a bonus for your work during the crisis also. If you ever want to come back, my door is open. I appreciate that, I said, but I think it is time for something new. Where are you headed? She asked. Consulting, I replied. Going independent, helping companies avoid database disasters like this. I left Apex Solutions at 5 p.m. on a Friday, exactly 15 years and 3 months after I had started. 3 months later, I was running my own consulting firm. 6 months after that, I had more clients than I could handle. A year later, I hired my first employee, Keith Peterson, who was tired of corporate politics, and sometimes, late at night, when I am reviewing a potential client's database infrastructure, I will find it. A personal directory full of undocumented scripts and critical processes that nobody remembers building. I will send a detailed report, explain the risks, and recommend proper migration. And if they ignore it, well, that is not my problem. I just follow orders exactly as given.